A powerful Mafia boss comes across his mother's coffin at an open casket wake and sees a little boy praying at the foot of the body. But when he discovers who sent him, he's shocked. The sound of Conrad Ashford's footsteps echoed through the silent halls of the funeral home. Each step felt heavier than the last, as though he carried not just his 37 years, but the weight of an entire empire on his shoulders. His hands trembled slightly, hands that had never shaken during the most dangerous negotiations. But there was no way to rehearse for this moment. How could the most feared man in Chicago prepare for his own mother's wake? Margaret Ashford, 58 years old, was taken by a cruel twist of fate on a rain-slick highway. Bodyguards flanked every entrance. Powerful figures filled the room, all dressed in black, all watching him. Conrad was the heir, the boss. Every eye followed him as he walked toward the open casket. And then it happened. Amid the sea of black, a flash of sky blue caught his eye. A small boy, no more than 5, in a light blue shirt. He moved toward the casket with determination surprising for someone so young. Conrad watched, frozen, as the child knelt and clasped his little hands in prayer. His lips moved silently, forming words no one could hear. Then the boy reached into his pocket and pulled out a single white chrysanthemum. Conrad's heart stopped. White chrysanthemums, Margaret's favorite flowers, the one soft thing she kept sacred in a world of steel. How did this child know? The boy placed the flower on Margaret's hands like a sacred ritual. Then, before Conrad could reach him, the child slipped into the crowd and vanished as though he had never existed. Only the white chrysanthemum proved he was real. That was when Conrad's eyes met his father's across the room. Harrison Ashford, 68, the former boss, stood frozen by a marble column, but it wasn't grief in his eyes. It was guilt, the kind that festers for decades. And in that moment, Conrad knew his father recognized that boy. The old man looked away, his face shutting down like a vault door. Conrad stared at the chrysanthemum on his mother's hands. One question burned in his mind. Who was that child? And what secret had his family buried for 30 years? If you're already hooked, smash that like button and share this with a friend. Subscribe and hit the bell because the secrets are just beginning to unfold. 10 days have passed since the funeral, yet for Conrad Ashford, each night stretches on like a century. He sits in his office at the Ashford estate, the faint glow of a desk lamp falling across stacks of documents he has no desire to touch. The clock on the wall strikes 2 in the morning, but sleep remains a luxury he cannot reach. The image of the boy in the blue shirt returns every time he closes his eyes. Small hands folded in prayer, a white chrysanthemum placed gently upon his mother's hand, and then the boy vanishes, as if he had never existed. Conrad has mobilized his entire intelligence team to search, yet it is like hunting a ghost. No one at the funeral recognized the child. No camera captured a clear image of his face. Not a single clue led anywhere. But what haunts Conrad most of all is the look in his father's eyes in that fleeting moment, the guilt in the eyes of a man who has been hiding something for decades. At exactly 9 in the morning on the 10th day, the doorbell rings. Conrad isn't surprised to find Francis Webb standing at the door. The 55-year-old attorney has served the Ashford family for 30 years, the only person outside the bloodline who knows every legal secret of this empire. But today, his expression is different. Not the stern composure of a lawyer, but the heaviness of a man carrying a burden. Francis steps into the office, sets his worn leather briefcase on the desk, and withdraws a cream-colored envelope. The red wax seal upon it makes Conrad's heart nearly stop. It is his mother's private mark, used only for her most important letters. Francis speaks, his voice low and reverent. Mrs. Ashford entrusted this envelope to me 5 years ago, with clear instructions that I deliver it to you exactly 10 days after her passing. Not a day earlier, not an hour later. I have kept my promise. Conrad stares at the envelope as if it might bite him at any moment. 5 years ago. His mother prepared this letter 5 years ago, as though she had known she would leave this world. Francis bows his head and departs, leaving Conrad alone with a message from the dead. He lowers himself into his chair. Conrad stared at his fingers that had remained steady in the face of death, now betraying the storm of emotion raging within him as he touched the fragile parchment. And yet now, a fragile envelope is enough to make them unsteady. Conrad breaks the wax seal and opens it. The familiar scent of his mother's perfume drifts out, as though she were sitting beside him. Margaret's elegant handwriting flows across the page, every stroke filled with a love he thought he had lost forever. My beloved son, If you are reading these words, it means I did not have the courage to tell you face to face while I was alive. I am sorry for that cowardice, but some secrets are too heavy to be spoken aloud, and I can only pass them to you through these lines. Conrad, you have a sister. Her name is Iris Holloway. She is 28 years old. She is your father's daughter with a woman named Catherine Moore, who was once our family's housekeeper 30 years ago. Conrad stops reading, his heart pounding wildly. A sister. He has a sister he never knew about in all 37 years of his life. He continues, each word like a blade cutting into everything he believed about his family. When Catherine discovered she was pregnant, your father panicked. He feared scandal would destroy the empire he was building. He feared enemies would use it against him. He gave Catherine money and told her to disappear. Catherine left carrying your father's child, and no one in this family ever spoke her name again. I found Iris 5 years ago, entirely by accident. I saw her in a small cafe on the outskirts of Chicago, and her face struck me like lightning. She looked so much like Catherine in the old photographs that there was no mistaking it. I investigated, and the truth was more painful than I had imagined. Iris doesn't know who her father is. Catherine never told her. She grew up in poverty, worked tirelessly to become a nurse, and now raises her child alone after escaping an abusive marriage. She has a 5-year-old son named Noah, your father's grandson, my grandson, and your nephew, Conrad. Tears begin to slide down Conrad's cheeks before he even realizes it. The boy at the funeral. Noah, his nephew. I have met Iris and Noah regularly over the past 5 years, always in secret, always in places where no one would recognize me. I have loved them as family, because they are family. I have helped them financially when I could, though Iris often refused to accept much because of her pride. My son, if you are reading this letter on the 10th day, it means you have seen Noah at the funeral. I asked Iris to bring him, and told the boy to place a white chrysanthemum in my hand. I knew you would notice. I knew you would search, and I knew you would not stop until you found the truth. That is why I love you, Conrad. You have my heart, even if you try to hide it behind the cold exterior shaped by your father's world. I don't ask you to forgive your father. That is your choice. But I beg one thing of you. Find Iris. Let her know she has a family. Protect her and Noah from the world your father unknowingly pulled them into when he abandoned Catherine. They deserve to be loved. And you, my son, you deserve a whole family. The last address I have for Iris is written below. I trust you will do what is right. I love you forever, Margaret. Conrad lowers the letter and stares into the empty space before him. 37 years. For 37 years he believed he was an only child. For 37 years he carried the burden of being the sole heir. And for 37 years, somewhere out there, a girl who shares his blood has been struggling through a life she should never have had to endure. His mother knew everything. She had quietly loved the child her husband abandoned, while his father continued living, as if Catherine and Iris had never existed. The woman he believed cared only for charity galas and her garden turns out to have been the bravest member of this family. Conrad picks up his phone and dials a familiar number. Ghost, his most trusted right hand, answers immediately. Find everything for me on a woman named Iris Holloway. Address, employment, history, everything, Conrad says, his voice cold and decisive as always, yet inside, a new fire is rising. I need the information within 24 hours. He looks down at the address at the bottom of the letter, an aging apartment complex on the outskirts of Chicago. His sister is out there somewhere, unaware that her life is about to change forever. That night, Conrad doesn't wait for morning. He doesn't need more time to think, doesn't need to weigh his words or prepare himself. The anger inside him has smoldered for 10 days, and now it erupts beyond control. He strides down the corridor of the estate with measured, decisive steps, his mother's letter clenched in his hand like an indictment. Harrison's study lies at the end of the West Wing, where the old man has retreated since handing control of the empire to his son. Conrad stops before the heavy oak door, and for the first time in his life, he doesn't knock. He pushes it open, as though the room belongs to him, because in this moment, he is no longer the obedient son of Harrison Ashford. The room is steeped in shadow, lit only by the faint glow of a desk lamp illuminating Harrison's aged face. He sits there, not reading, not reviewing papers, simply sitting like a statue awaiting the inevitable. When Conrad enters, Harrison doesn't appear surprised. He doesn't even look up, as if he has always known this moment would come, only not when. Conrad throws the letter onto the desk, the sound of paper striking wood cracking through the silence like thunder. "You knew from the beginning," Conrad says, his voice cold as ice yet burning with fury beneath. "The child at the funeral. You knew who he was. Your eyes betrayed you." Silence. Harrison says nothing. He doesn't deny it, doesn't explain, doesn't defend himself. The silence stretches so long Conrad can almost hear his own heartbeat. At last, Harrison lifts his head, his weary eyes meeting his son's blazing ones. His voice is low and tired, carrying the weight of 30 years of deceit. "Your mother told you, didn't she?" Conrad lets out a hollow laugh, empty of humor. "She had to die to find the courage, because she knew you would never admit it yourself. She knew you would carry this secret to your grave if no one forced it into the light." Harrison closes his eyes as if the words pierce straight into his chest. "And perhaps they do. You don't understand," Harrison begins, his voice like a whisper from a distant past. 30 years ago, I was 38. I was rebuilding the empire from the ashes my father left behind. Enemies circled like wolves scenting weakness. Every day was a fight to survive. And then I met Catherine." He pauses, his gaze drifting into space as though seeing the woman again. She was a housekeeper, but unlike anyone I had ever known. Intelligent, gentle. She looked at me not as a mafia kingpin, but as a man. She was the only light in my darkest days. I loved her, Conrad. I truly loved her. Not a passing affair, not the indulgence of a powerful man, but this world doesn't allow men like me to love. Conrad stands still, listening, yet his anger doesn't cool. "And when she told me she was pregnant," Harrison continues, his voice trembling, "I panicked. I imagined what my enemies would do if they found out. A mafia boss in love with his maid. A child with her. They would have laughed in my face. They would have used it to destroy me. They would have harmed Catherine and the baby to wound me. I gave her money, a great deal of money, and told her to leave. I thought she would understand. I thought she would handle it in her own way. I didn't know she kept the child." "You thought," Conrad cuts in, contempt dripping from every word. "You didn't bother to ask, didn't bother to check. You sent a pregnant woman away and never even cared what happened to her." Harrison bows his head, his shoulders trembling. "I was afraid, Conrad. Afraid that if I knew the truth, I wouldn't be able to go on living as though nothing had happened. Afraid to face the consequences of my choice. So I chose not to know. I chose to forget." Conrad steps closer, towering over the man who once embodied power in his eyes. "You ordered men eliminated without your hand shaking. You faced the most dangerous enemies without blinking, but you were afraid to love your own daughter. You are a coward, father." Harrison doesn't argue. He sits there, his entire body seeming to shrink, smaller than ever before. And then he says the one thing that feels like a blade driven straight through Conrad's chest. "I knew about Iris from the moment she was born. Someone informed me. I knew she existed, knew where she lived, knew what she did. But I was too much of a coward to appear." Conrad steps back, disbelief crashing over him. 15 years. You knew for 28 years and did nothing. Not once did you reach out. Not a dollar of support. Not a word of explanation. Harrison looks up, his eyes red though dry. "I thought if I stayed away, she would have a normal life, unconnected to the underworld, unmarked by my enemies. I believed I was protecting her by keeping my distance." Conrad shakes his head, a bitter smile touching his mouth. "You weren't protecting her. You were protecting yourself. Protecting the perfect image you built. Protecting your comfort so you wouldn't have to face your mistake. And Iris had to struggle alone while you sat here in this mansion, pretending she didn't exist." Conrad turns and walks toward the door. He has heard enough. He has understood enough. And he has decided. Harrison calls after him, his voice like the desperate cry of a drowning man. "What are you going to do?" Conrad stops at the threshold but doesn't turn around. He stands tall, shoulders broad, the posture of a man ready to carry the responsibility his father avoided for 3 decades. "What you should have done 30 years ago," Conrad says, his voice firm and without hesitation. "I am bringing my sister home." He steps out, leaving Harrison alone in the darkness, with the ghosts of a past he can no longer outrun. 3 days after the confrontation with his father, Conrad sits in his office, waiting for Ghost's report. He hasn't slept much in those days. his mind circling endlessly around the image of a sister he has never met. At the appointed hour, Ghost enters, a thick file in his hand. The 45-year-old man is Conrad's most trusted right hand, the only one capable of digging up every secret without leaving a trace. Ghost sets the file on the desk, and there is a flicker of hesitation on his face that Conrad rarely sees. "I've found everything about her," Ghost says, his voice low and grave. "But you should prepare yourself. This isn't an easy story to hear." Conrad opens the file, and the first thing he sees is a photograph of Iris Holloway. She is 28, her brown hair tied neatly at the nape of her neck, her eyes looking straight into the camera with a weariness that doesn't erase her strength. Those eyes are Harrison's. The same dark brown, the same almond shape. Yet where his father's gaze has always been cold and calculating, Iris's carries a deep sadness, the kind born of enduring too much in too short a life. Ghost begins to speak, his tone steady, as though reciting an indictment against fate itself. Iris Holloway, 28, currently works as a pediatric nurse at St. Mary's Public Hospital on the south side of Chicago. She graduated from nursing school on scholarships and student loans, debts she still hasn't paid off. She works 2 to 3 shifts a day, sometimes 16 hours straight, just to cover expenses. Conrad's eyes drift to the address listed in the file. An aging apartment complex on the outskirts. 4th floor, no elevator. Ghost continues. The area isn't safe. High crime rate. Broken streetlights. Not the kind of place a single mother with a small child should live. "And Catherine?" Conrad asks, his voice dry. "Her mother?" Ghost turns the page, revealing a photograph of a middle-aged woman with a gentle smile and eyes marked by quiet resignation. Catherine Moore passed away 3 years ago from cancer. The illness was discovered too late. She didn't have good insurance, and the cost of treatment consumed everything they had. When she died, she left behind medical debt of $87,000. Iris has carried that burden alone. Conrad's hands curl into fists as he fights the surge of anger rising in his chest. $87,000. To the Ashford family, that would have been monthly pocket change. To Iris, it has been a weight pressing on her shoulders for 3 years. "And Catherine?" Conrad asks. "Did she ever tell Iris who her father was?" Ghost shakes his head. "From what I've uncovered, Catherine never revealed his identity. She only told Iris he was a good man who lived in a different world, and that it was best not to look for him. She grew up not knowing who her father was, believing she had been abandoned, believing she wasn't important enough to be loved." Ghost turns to the next section of the file, and his expression hardens. This is the part you need to pay special attention to. 5 years ago, at 23, Iris married a man named Derek Vance. At first, he seemed decent. Stable job, charming. But after Noah was born, his true nature surfaced. Domestic violence. Conrad studies the photographs taken from police records, bruises along Iris's arm, a faint scar on her shoulder. His anger shifts from heat to ice, colder and far more dangerous. Iris divorced him when Noah was 2. Ghost continues. She endured a long legal battle to free herself. Derek lost visitation rights because of documented abuse, but he hasn't accepted it. He still follows her, shows up unexpectedly, sends threatening messages. And recently, Ghost's voice lowers. He's been seen near Noah's school, as if waiting. Conrad's jaw tightens. Who is he? Any connection to our world? Ghost nods, and now his concern is unmistakable. This is what troubles me most. Derek Vance has ties to Lorenzo Gambini. Conrad looks up sharply, his gaze turning razor cold. Gambini, the Ashford family's lifelong enemy. 2 empires that have battled for dominance in Chicago for decades. A war never truly ended. Derek owes Gambini a significant debt and can't repay it, Ghost explains. According to what I've found, he's working for Gambini to settle it. And if Gambini knows Iris is Harrison Ashford's daughter, he may be using Derek to get close to her. Conrad understands at once. Iris isn't just his sister. She may be turning into a piece on a board she doesn't even know exists. An innocent pawn in the games of powerful men, just as her mother was 30 years ago. "Anything else?" Conrad asks, his voice now calm again, the chilling calm of a man beginning to strategize. "Margaret," Ghost says. "She's been secretly helping Iris for 5 years, paid part of Catherine's medical debt, sent anonymous money every month. But Iris is fiercely proud. She refuses to accept much, always insists on carrying everything herself. Margaret and Iris met once a month. always at a small cafe on the outskirts where no one would recognize Mrs. Ashford. Conrad closes his eyes for a moment, picturing his mother sitting in a modest cafe, speaking softly to the young woman she loved as her own child, keeping the secret from the entire world. His mother was braver than anyone in this family. He opens his eyes and looks again at Iris's photograph. "She deserves to know the truth," he says firmly. "She deserves to know she has a family, and she deserves protection from those who would use her." Conrad rises and slips on his jacket. "Prepare the car," he orders. "I'm going to meet her myself. One bodyguard only. I don't want to frighten her." Ghost raises an eyebrow, concern etched across his seasoned face. "Are you sure? Derek may be watching her. If he sees you, he could inform Gambini." Conrad smiles, but there is no warmth in it. "Good," he says quietly. "If he appears, I want him to understand that my sister is no longer alone." He walks out, leaving Ghost watching him with a mixture of worry and respect. His boss is changing, and perhaps that's a good thing. Or perhaps it is the beginning of another war. St. Mary's Hospital stands on the south side of Chicago, an aging building with damp-stained walls and narrow corridors that are always crowded with patients. Conrad waits in a corner of the third-floor hallway, where pediatrics is located, pretending to look at his phone while his eyes quietly observe. His polished black car is parked discreetly in the rear lot, with only one bodyguard accompanying him as requested. He doesn't want to draw attention, doesn't want to frighten her before he has the chance to speak. The clock shows 7 in the evening. Iris's shift is about to end, according to Ghost information. And then he sees her. Iris steps out of a patient's room, her white coat wrinkled after a long day, her brown hair hastily twisted into a bun, with loose strands falling against her cheeks. Dark circles shadow her eyes, the mark of sleepless nights and exhausting days. She looks so tired that Conrad wonders how she's still standing. But then she pauses outside another room, where a small boy sits on a bed with his arm in a cast. She kneels to his eye level and says something Conrad cannot hear, yet he sees her face change completely. Her smile brightens, warm and genuine, dissolving every trace of fatigue. The boy smiles back, and Iris pulls a small teddy bear from her pocket and places it gently in his hands. Conrad watches the scene, his chest tightening. She gives what she barely has, he thinks. She carries enormous debt, raises her child alone, works herself to exhaustion. Yet she still buys teddy bears for her patients. This is his sister, and he never even knew she existed. Iris leaves the pediatric ward and walks briskly down the hallway, with the determined stride of someone eager to get home. Conrad follows at a careful distance, not wanting her to feel watched. She exits through the rear doors and heads toward a bus stop several hundred feet away. Night has fallen. Pale yellow streetlights cast their thin glow over the quiet road. Conrad knows this is the moment. He quickens his pace, the sound of his leather shoes striking the pavement. "Iris Holloway," he calls, making his voice as gentle as he can. She turns immediately, and what he sees makes his heart ache. Wariness. Fear. The instinctive defense of someone hurt too many times. Her eyes scan him quickly, taking in the expensive suit, the sleek black car parked nearby, the bodyguard standing beside it. All the signs of power and danger. "Who are you?" she asks, her voice tight as a drawn wire. "What do you want from me?" Conrad raises both hands, a gesture of peace. "I'm Conrad Ashford," he says. "I need to speak with you." Her reaction is worse than he expected. She steps back, eyes wide, her face paling under the streetlight. "Ashford." Her voice trembles. "The Ashford Mafia. I don't know anyone. I don't know anything. Please, just leave me alone." She's imagining the worst. Perhaps she thinks he's here because of Derek, because of the trouble her ex-husband has caused. Perhaps she believes he's come to threaten her, to collect a debt, to harm her. And that realization cuts Conrad deeply. In her world, men like him only bring pain. "Miss Holloway," Conrad says softly, "I'm not here to threaten you. I'm here because of my mother. Your mother." Iris frowns, fear mixing with confusion. "I don't know your mother. I have nothing to do with your family." Slowly, deliberately, Conrad reaches into the inner pocket of his jacket, moving carefully so she won't mistake it for a weapon. He takes out the cream-colored envelope, slightly worn from being carried for days, sealed with the red wax his mother once used. "Do you recognize this?" he asks, extending it toward her. She stares at the envelope, and he sees something shift in her eyes. The fear remains, But something else appears. Recognition. Emotion. Her hand trembles as she takes it, as if touching something sacred. "The red seal," she whispers, "like the letters she used to send me." She opens it and pulls out the letter. Conrad stands still, watching her read beneath the dim yellow light. He sees her shoulders begin to shake, sees tears spill down her cheeks. Not tears of fear, tears for someone beloved. "She's gone?" Iris asks, her voice breaking as she looks up. Conrad nods, his own throat tightening. 10 days ago. A car accident on the highway. Iris begins to sob, one hand covering her mouth, while the other clutches the letter as though it might vanish. She was the only one. She manages between broken breaths, the only one who treated me like family after my mother died. She met me every month, sent money even when I refused, bought gifts for Noah. I didn't know who she really was. I didn't know she was wealthy or powerful. I only knew she loved me. She pauses, lifting tear-filled eyes to Conrad. "She told me to bring Noah to the funeral. She said it was the only way you would know we existed." "The white chrysanthemum," Conrad says hoarsely. "Mother loved chrysanthemums." Iris nods. "She told Noah to place it in her hand. She said your brother will understand and he will find you." I didn't understand then. I didn't know I had a brother. Conrad feels as though something is squeezing his heart. His mother planned everything, even knowing she might leave at any moment. She made certain that whatever happened, Iris and Noah would not be abandoned. "You have me now," Conrad says firmly. "You have family." But Iris shakes her head and steps back. "I know who your family is," she says, her voice hardening though tears still streak her face. "I read the papers. I watched the news. I don't want anything to do with that world. I have Noah. I have to protect my son." Conrad understands her fear. She survived violence with Derek. She knows how dangerous the underworld can be, and she would do anything to keep Noah safe, even refuse her own blood. "I'm not asking you to trust me immediately," he says. "I'm not asking you to move in with us or change your life. I'm only asking one thing. Let me know my nephew. Let Noah know he has family beyond you." Iris studies him for a long moment, her eyes searching for deception, for hidden motives. She has been betrayed too often to trust easily. Yet perhaps she sees something there. Something sincere. Something that reminds her of the way Margaret once looked at her. "One meal," she finally says, her voice still cautious but no longer entirely closed. "Just one. If Noah doesn't like you, we stop there. You don't come to my home. You don't bring a bodyguard. Just you and us, somewhere public." Conrad nods, and for the first time since his mother died, he feels a small spark of hope in his chest. "One meal," he agrees. "You choose the place. You choose the time. I'll be there." Their first meal takes place on a Saturday afternoon at a modest pizza restaurant on the outskirts of Chicago, a place Iris has chosen. Conrad steps inside and looks around at the worn plastic tables, the mismatched chairs, the walls covered with pictures of pizzas, priced so cheaply, he can hardly believe his eyes. In all 37 years of his life, he has never set foot in a place like this. His meals have always been in the most exclusive restaurants in Chicago, where a single bottle of wine costs more than a month of an ordinary man's salary. Yet today he sits here, on a slightly unsteady plastic chair, waiting for his sister and his nephew. Iris arrives on time, holding Noah's hand. The 5-year-old boy wears a pale blue shirt, his brown hair neatly combed, but his wide eyes study Conrad with shyness and caution. He hides behind his mother's leg, revealing only half his face to observe the unfamiliar man. Conrad realizes this is his greatest test. He has negotiated with the most dangerous enemies, faced guns and threats without fear, but making friends with a 5-year-old child, he has no idea where to begin. "Hello, Noah," Conrad says, trying to keep his voice gentle, though it sounds awkward even to himself. "What kind of pizza do you like?" Noah doesn't answer, only grips his mother's hand more tightly. Iris sits across from Conrad and pulls Noah into the seat beside her. She watches Conrad with eyes that are both wary and challenging, as if waiting to see what he will do next. Conrad feels a faint sheen of sweat on his forehead. He may be the most powerful mafia leader in Chicago, but before this small boy he feels like a fool. He glances around for something to say, and his eyes settle on a window overlooking the restaurant's tiny garden where a few flowers are blooming. "Do you know what kind of flowers Grandma Margaret liked?" he asks suddenly. not realizing what he is about to say until the words are already spoken. Noah looks up, his round eyes widening. "White chrysanthemums," he whispers, his voice barely audible. "Grandma Margaret told me to put chrysanthemums in her hand." Conrad nods, his throat tightening. "That's right. Grandma had a beautiful garden filled with white chrysanthemums. She cared for them every day, watered them, talked to them." "She talked to flowers?" Noah asks, his shyness fading, curiosity taking its place. Conrad smiles, and this time it is a real smile. "Yes, she said chrysanthemums were the best friends because they knew how to keep secrets. Whenever she was sad or happy, she told the flowers, and they never told anyone else." Noah giggles, a clear, bright sound like a small bell ringing. "Flowers can keep secrets, Uncle." Conrad feels his heart soften in a way he never expected. That laughter, those shining eyes, that simple joy. He never knew how much he needed to hear such things. The next 2 weeks pass like a dream Conrad doesn't want to wake from. He begins picking Noah up after school, waiting outside the gates like any other man, though his bodyguard stands discreetly at the far end of the street. He takes Noah to the park, sits and watches him climb the slide and swing high into the air, buys him ice cream whenever he does something good. He tells Noah stories about Grandma Margaret, about the garden of chrysanthemums, about the meals she used to cook, and Noah listens with wide eyes and parted lips, as though Conrad is telling the most magical tales in the world. Uncle Conrad. Noah starts calling him that after their third meeting. Those 2 words from a child's mouth feel like a title more precious than any rank in the underworld. Uncle Conrad. Uncle Conrad. Uncle Conrad. Noah calls him whenever he wants to show something, whenever he needs to be lifted high to see better, whenever he feels afraid and needs protection. And Conrad realizes this child is filling a space inside him he never knew was empty. Iris stands nearby, watching everything in silence. She notices the way Conrad patiently ties Noah's shoelaces when the boy cannot manage it, the way he bends down to listen carefully to Noah's rambling stories, the way he answers every absurd question from a 5-year-old as if it were the most important matter in the world. "You're not what I imagined someone like you would be," she tells him one afternoon as they sit on a park bench watching Noah play. Conrad turns to her, one corner of his mouth lifting slightly. "And what is someone like me?" he asks. Iris shrugs. Cold, ruthless, caring only about power and money. At least, that's what I read in the papers. Conrad lets out a quiet laugh. "I never imagined I'd be eating pizza in a small place like that with my sister and nephew," he says. Life is full of surprises. Iris smiles, and it is the first true smile he has seen from her. Not polite, not forced, a smile from the heart that lights up her tired face. "The boss has been smiling a lot lately," Ghost remarks when Conrad returns to the estate after an afternoon at the park with Noah. The men are worried. Conrad raises an eyebrow. "Worried about what? That someone has cast a spell on you?" Ghost replies, his face serious though his eyes gleam. "We've never seen you like this." Conrad doesn't answer, only smiles as he walks into his study, but the smile fades when he sees the report on his desk. Derek Vance has appeared near Noah's school 3 times in the past week. He hasn't done anything, only stood at a distance. As if waiting, as if watching, as if planning. Conrad's jaw tightens. "Increase protection around Iris and Noah," he orders, his voice turning cold as steel. "Around the clock. Don't let her know. Not yet." He doesn't want to frighten Iris just as they have begun to build trust, but he will protect them at any cost. That night, when Conrad walks Iris and Noah home after dinner, the boy wraps his arms tightly around his neck before going inside. "Uncle Conrad, will you come back?" Noah asks, his voice worried as though the answer might be no. Conrad bends down and looks into his nephew's clear eyes. "I promise," he says, and he truly means it. Noah beams, kisses Conrad's cheek, and runs into the building. Iris stands at the doorway, watching her son, then turns to Conrad. Her eyes are red, but not from sadness. "Thank you," she whispers. "I didn't realize how much Noah needed this." Conrad looks at her, then at the small apartment where Noah is waving through the window. "I didn't realize how much I needed it either," he says, and it is the most honest truth he has ever spoken. That night, the clock has just struck 11 when Conrad's phone rings. He is sitting in his office reviewing business reports, yet his mind cannot focus. The image of Noah's giggle, the sound of the boy calling Uncle Conrad, still echoes in his head. When he sees the name of the bodyguard assigned to watch Iris's apartment complex, his heart tightens instantly. "Boss, there's a problem." The guard's voice is tense over the line. Derek Vance is outside Miss Holloway's door. He's drunk and pounding on it. She called the police, but no one's arrived yet. Conrad doesn't need to hear more. He storms out of the room, snatches his car keys, and heads for the garage as if fire is at his back. Ghost follows, sliding into the passenger seat without a word. The black car tears through Chicago's streets at night, tires screeching at sharp turns. In Conrad's mind there is only one thought: Noah, Iris, his family is in danger. The aging apartment building comes into view. Its windows dark except for one lit unit on the 4th floor. Even from the street, Conrad can hear the pounding on the door, heavy blows echoing through the night, accompanied by the slurred roar of a drunken man. "Iris, open the door. I have a right to see my son. You can't keep him from me forever. Open up." Conrad steps out of the car, Ghost and 2 guards close behind. He climbs the stairs calmly, each step steady. Not rushed, not slow. This is how he faces enemies. No panic, no haste. Only the cold certainty of a man prepared to do whatever is necessary to protect those he loves. Inside the apartment, Iris sits curled in a corner, clutching Noah tightly in her arms. The boy trembles, tears streaming down his face, hands clamped over his ears to block out the deafening blows. "Mommy, I'm scared," Noah sobs. "Is Daddy going to hit you again? Is he going to take me away?" Iris holds him tighter, forcing back her own tears so she can be strong for him. "No, sweetheart," she whispers, her voice shaking but determined. "Mommy will protect you. I promise," yet inside she is frozen with fear. She called the police 15 minutes ago, and still no one has come. Derek is drunk and unhinged. She doesn't know what he will do if he breaks the door. She has no weapon, no help, only her arms around her son and a silent prayer. Suddenly the pounding stops. Footsteps. Then Derek's voice, no longer swaggering but edged with uncertainty. "Who the hell are you? This is my family's business. What's it to you?" Conrad stands at the end of the hallway, staring at Derek Vance with eyes like ice. The man before him looks pathetic, clothes disheveled, eyes bloodshot, the stench of alcohol thick around him. This is the man who beat his sister. This is the man who made Noah cry in terror. Conrad doesn't answer at once. He steps forward slowly, deliberately, like a predator closing in. Ghost and the guards block the stairwell behind Derek. The drunken bravado drains from him as instinct warns of real danger. "Do you have any idea who you're threatening?" Conrad finally asks, his voice low and deadly as a funeral bell. Derek studies his face, the tailored suit, the men behind him, and the color drains from his own. You're Conrad Ashford." His voice trembles. "That's impossible. What does she have to do with Ashford?" Conrad steps closer until only a few feet separate them. "Iris Holloway is my sister. Noah is my nephew. And you," he fixes Derek with a steady gaze, "have just made the greatest mistake of your miserable life." Derek begins to shake, every trace of drunken aggression dissolving. Everyone in Chicago's underworld knows the Ashford name, and everyone knows what happens to those who touch their own. I didn't know," Derek stammers. "She never said." Conrad cuts him off. "This is your only warning. Come within a mile of my sister or my nephew again, and you will disappear from this earth. No one will find you. Not the police, not your family, not a single soul will know where you went. Do you understand?" Derek nods frantically, then turns and flees down the stairs, nearly stumbling in his panic, vanishing into the night like a terrified rat. Conrad turns back to the apartment door, now slightly open. Iris stands there, eyes red, Noah in her arms. When the boy sees Conrad, his tear-streaked face lights up. "Uncle Conrad!" Noah pulls free and runs to him, wrapping small arms around his leg. "You made Daddy go away. He won't hit Mommy anymore, right?" Conrad kneels and gently lifts him, letting the child rest his head against his shoulder. "No one will ever make you afraid again," he says softly, in a tone even Ghost has never heard from him. "I promise." Iris stands in the doorway, watching with complicated emotion. Gratitude that he came, fear of the world he represents, and perhaps, beneath it all, a flicker of hope in the darkness that has shadowed her life for too long. Later, after Noah has calmed and been tucked into bed with his favorite teddy bear, Conrad sits across from Iris in the small living room. "Iris, There's something you need to know. He begins seriously. Derek isn't just an abusive ex-husband. He's working for Lorenzo Gambini, my family's longtime enemy. He owes Gambini a large debt, and Gambini may be using him to get close to you, to get close to my family. Iris pales. I'm just a nurse, she whispers. I don't belong to that world. I only want a peaceful life with my son. Conrad meets her gaze, sympathy there, but also hard truth. You are Harrison Ashford's daughter. Whether you want it or not, whether you knew it or not, you have been part of this world since the day you were born. Silence fills the room. Iris looks down at her hands that have cared for countless patients, shielded her child in frightened nights, defended herself against Derek's blows. She has fought alone for years, and now someone is telling her she doesn't have to be alone anymore. I know you're afraid of my world, Conrad continues. I don't blame you. It is dangerous and ruthless and full of shadows. But that same world can protect you and Noah. I can protect you and Noah. Iris lifts her eyes toward the bedroom where Noah now sleeps peacefully. For the first time in years, he sleeps without trembling in fear. For the first time, he doesn't need her to hold him through the night. All right, Iris finally says, her voice quiet but firm. I'll move into the apartment you arrange, but I will keep working. I don't want to depend on anyone. Conrad nods. I respect that. That night, after Conrad leaves and silence settles over the apartment once more, Iris lies down beside her son. She closes her eyes, and for the first time in years, she doesn't dream of Derek. Instead, she dreams of white chrysanthemums blooming in a garden Conrad once described to Noah. A week after the incident with Derek, Conrad decides it's time to bring Iris and Noah to the Ashford estate. Not to stay, not yet, but to meet the family, to let them know they belong here. He informs Harrison, Sterling, and Beatrice in advance that important guests are coming. He doesn't say who, only that it's a family matter that must be addressed. When the black car stops before the estate gates, Noah is the first to react. He presses his face to the window, wide eyes stretching so far they seem ready to tumble out. Mommy, is this a castle? He asks in awe. Are there princesses here? Are there dragons? Iris doesn't answer. She only tightens her grip on his hand, her heart pounding so loudly she can hear it in her ears. The Ashford estate rises before them, vast and imposing, with marble columns, sprawling gardens, and ornate iron gates. This is her father's world, the world she should have been born into but was denied. And now she stands before its doors on trembling legs. Conrad opens the car door and helps them out. Don't worry, he murmurs to Iris, his tone reassuring though tension flickers in his eyes. I'm here. No one will make you uncomfortable. They step through the grand entrance into a soaring hall crowned with crystal chandeliers. Noah continues staring in wonder, but Iris freezes in place, because at the far end of the hall, beside the sweeping staircase, stands an older man with silver hair and eyes she recognizes instantly. Eyes exactly like hers. Harrison Ashford looks at Iris, and time seems to stop. He sees Catherine, in every line of her face, the same dark brown eyes, the same delicate nose, the same slight tilt in her posture, as though ready to flee. 30 years ago he drove Catherine from this house, and now her daughter stands here like a ghost returned from the past to demand justice. He wants to step forward, to speak, but his feet feel nailed to the marble floor. His mouth opens, yet no sound emerges. They face one another across the vast room, 30 years of silence and secrets yawning between them like an unbridgeable chasm. What is this, Conrad? The sharp voice cuts through the stillness. Sterling Ashford strides out from the adjoining sitting room, his wife Beatrice close behind. Sterling is 42, Harrison's younger brother, Conrad's uncle. His angular face and calculating eyes belong to a man accustomed to counting every dollar in the family vault. Beatrice, 40, presses her lips thin, regarding Iris and Noah as though they are insects that wandered indoors. You bring strangers into the estate without consulting anyone, Sterling says, his tone laced with accusation. This is Ashford property, not a refugee camp. Conrad steps forward, positioning himself beside Iris like a shield. She's not a stranger, he says evenly, though his voice carries unmistakable weight. She's my sister, Iris Holloway, my father's daughter with Catherine Moore. A deathly silence falls. Sterling stands stunned, while Beatrice draws in a sharp breath. Then she laughs, shrill and scornful. Sister, she scans Iris from head to toe with open contempt. She's the maid's child, an illegitimate daughter no one heard of for 30 years. This is obviously an attempt to seize family assets. Sterling nods, eyes narrowing in calculation. The timing is too convenient. Margaret just died, and suddenly a woman appears, claiming to be Harrison's daughter. How do we know she isn't Gambini's spy? They'll try anything to undermine us. Noah doesn't understand the words, but he senses hostility in the air. The raised voices, the cold stares. He hides behind his mother, clutching her skirt, small body trembling. "Mommy, do they hate us?" he whispers. "Why are they yelling? Did I do something wrong?" Iris's heart breaks at his question. She kneels and gathers him close, her voice gentle though anger burns inside her. "No, sweetheart, they just don't understand yet. No one hates you." But Sterling and Beatrice don't relent. "I demand she leave immediately," Beatrice snaps, her voice sharp as a blade. "And take that child with her. We won't tolerate imposters in this house. Enough." Conrad's voice rings out, cold and commanding. He moves between Iris and Sterling, standing like an immovable wall. "She is blood of this family. My mother knew it. My mother loved her for 5 years before she died. She left letters confirming everything, and anyone who cannot accept that," he fixes his gaze on Sterling, "may leave this house right now." Sterling's face darkens, veins rising at his temples. "Are you threatening me? I am your uncle. I've been part of this family since before you were born." Conrad doesn't flinch. "And I am head of this family now," he replies, steel in his tone. "My decision is final. Iris is my sister. Noah is my nephew. They will be treated as members of the Ashford family. You're destroying everything your father built," Sterling shouts, face flushed red. Conrad steps closer, lowering his voice yet making it heavier. "My father built this empire by abandoning his daughter, by casting out the woman he loved while she carried his child, by living a lie for 30 years. I will not repeat that mistake." Throughout the confrontation, Harrison stands silent as stone. He doesn't intervene. He doesn't defend Iris. He doesn't stop Sterling. He simply stands there, pale, eyes filled with pain yet lips sealed. And when Conrad speaks Catherine's name, when he names his father's cowardice, Harrison turns away. He walks out without a word, without a single backward glance, too cowardly to face his daughter, just as he was too cowardly 30 years ago to keep her mother. Iris watches his retreating figure and doesn't know what she feels. Disappointment, hurt, or only the emptiness of someone who abandoned hope long ago. "Maybe I shouldn't have come," she murmurs to Conrad, exhaustion in her voice. "I don't want to tear your family apart." Conrad turns to her, his expression softening. "You're not tearing anything apart," he says. "You're exposing cracks that have existed for 30 years. That isn't your fault." Noah tugs at Conrad's hand, eyes glistening. "Uncle Conrad, can we go home? I don't like it here." Conrad kneels, meeting his nephew's gaze, seeing fear and confusion in a child who cannot understand adult cruelty. "Not yet, Noah," he says gently but firmly, "because this is going to be your home. I promise." That night, Iris cannot sleep. After the tense confrontation with Sterling and Beatrice, Conrad arranges for her and Noah to stay at the estate in a luxurious guest room, but the room's splendor cannot soothe her spiraling thoughts. Noah is asleep, his small body curled beneath a silk blanket, but Iris keeps turning from side to side. At last she rises, slips on a thin sweater, and steps out of the room. The mansion is silent at midnight, only her footsteps whispering across the marble floor as she wanders through the long, endless corridors. She doesn't know what she is looking for, perhaps only a little air to breathe, a little space to think. When she passes a large glass door that looks out onto the back garden, Iris stops. She sees a figure standing among the garden beds, surrounded by white chrysanthemums blooming under the moonlight. The shape is heartbreakingly familiar, even though she has seen him only once a few hours earlier. Harrison Ashford. Her father. He stands alone, his back bent as though carrying the weight of the world, his head bowed like a man in prayer, or a man in penance. The white chrysanthemums circle him like silent spirits, the flowers her mother planted 30 years ago, the flowers Margaret tended, the flowers that hold the secret of an entire life. Iris hesitates. She could turn back to her room and pretend she never saw anything. She owes this man nothing. He abandoned her mother when she needed him most. Let Iris grow up without a father, watched from afar while her life sank into hardship. But something draws her toward the garden, perhaps her mother's teaching about forgiveness, perhaps the memory of Margaret and the love she gave Iris, or perhaps simply the need to understand why. She opens the glass door and steps outside. The night air is cold enough to make her shiver, but she keeps walking toward Harrison. The sound of her footsteps on dew-damp grass must have announced her presence, because Harrison speaks without turning. "You shouldn't be out here," he says, his voice rough. "The night is cold." Iris stops a few steps away. "So are you," she replies. Silence settles over them, heavy and haunting. They stand among the white chrysanthemums, only a few steps apart, yet separated by an ocean. 30 years of silence, 30 years of distance, 30 years of lies lie between them like a bottomless pit. "I didn't come here for money," Iris finally says, her voice calm but carrying the weight of years of struggle. "I didn't come for inheritance or power. I've lived my whole life without those things, and I've lived fine. I came because my mother taught me about forgiveness. And because Margaret, she was the only family I had after my mother died. She loved me when no one else did." Harrison turns, and for the first time since she arrived, he looks straight into her eyes. His are rimmed red, his aged face carved with the deep lines of time and guilt. "You look like your mother," he whispers, his voice trembling. "So much that I was afraid to look. Every time I see you, I see Catherine. I see the woman I betrayed." Iris says nothing, only stands there and waits. Then Harrison says something that leaves her stunned. "I watched you and your mother for 30 years, he confesses, his voice like a guilty whisper in the dark. Iris feels as if someone has punched her in the chest. "You knew about us?" she asks, her voice shaking. "All that time, you knew?" Harrison nods, his pain impossible to hide. "I knew when your mother worked 3 jobs to raise you. I knew when you had to leave school to care for her when she was sick. I knew about the medical debt pressing on your shoulders after your mother died." He pauses, his voice catching. "I stood outside the cemetery the day your mother was buried. I stood behind a tree, watching you cry, watching you pour the first handful of earth onto the coffin. And I didn't dare walk in. I didn't dare face you. I am a coward, Iris. I have always been a coward." Iris stands motionless, emotion surging inside her, but her face gives nothing away. She doesn't scream. She doesn't cry. She doesn't slap him, though she has every right. Instead, she asks a single question, her voice so calm it is frightening. "Why?" Harrison shakes his head, his shoulders trembling. "I thought if I didn't appear, you would have a normal life," he says. "Not connected to the underworld, not targeted by my enemies. I thought I was protecting you by staying away." "You thought abandoning us was protecting us?" Iris asks, and for the first time a trace of bitterness enters her voice. "While my mother worked herself to exhaustion, while I had to leave school to work, while we struggled every day just to survive, you thought that was protection." Harrison bows his head. "I know it was a lie," he admits. "I was only afraid. Afraid to face what I'd done. Afraid to look into Catherine's eyes and see disappointment. Afraid to look into your eyes and see hatred. I was a coward, and I chose the easiest path. To run." Silence stretches between them, broken only by the night wind moving through the white chrysanthemums. Then Iris steps closer until she stands directly before him. "My mother never hated you," she says, her voice softening. "She said you were a good man, only living in a world that didn't allow you to be weak. She never spoke badly of you in front of me, never blamed you for the hardships we endured. She forgave you long ago, and I..." Iris pauses, drawing a deep breath. "I forgive you too." Harrison lifts his head, disbelief filling his eyes. "You forgive me, after everything I've done?" Iris nods. "Maybe you don't deserve it," she says. "But forgiveness isn't about whether you deserve it. It's because I need to be free of resentment. I carried it too long, and it only made me heavier. My mother taught me that forgiveness is a gift we give ourselves, not the person who hurt us." Harrison collapses, his knees hitting the ground, his body shaking with choked sobs. Not loud crying, but the breaking of a man who has carried guilt too long and is finally released. "I don't deserve it," he repeats again and again. "I don't deserve it. I know," Iris says gently. "But that isn't your decision, Grandpa." A small voice calls from the back door. Noah stands there in his pajamas, sleep heavy in his eyes but worry plain. He woke and couldn't find his mother, and went searching. When he sees the old man kneeling on the ground and crying, he doesn't understand what is happening, but the instinct of a pure child carries him forward. He wraps his arms around Harrison's leg, small hands gripping tight. "Grandpa, don't be sad," Noah says, his voice clear. "Mommy says after you cry you feel better. Grandpa, you can cry, and then I'll hug you so you don't feel so sad." Harrison looks down at the grandson he nearly lost forever, a child carrying his blood whom he never even knew existed. He bends and pulls Noah into his arms, for the first time in 30 years holding his own flesh and blood. The small child rests his head on Harrison's shoulder, completely trusting, completely innocent. And Harrison weeps, for Catherine, for the years lost, for the cowardly life he has lived. From a mansion window, Sterling watches the scene in the garden. He sees Harrison holding the child, sees Iris standing nearby, sees 3 generations mending themselves among the white chrysanthemums. His expression is complicated, anger mixed with confusion, and something begins to loosen in eyes that have always been cold and calculating. Beatrice stands behind him, her voice sharp. He's holding that child. Sterling doesn't answer. He only stands there, looking out at the garden, and for the first time, he doesn't walk away. A few days after the night in the chrysanthemum garden, Iris decides it is time to share the most precious thing her mother left behind. She brings with her the old wooden box from her apartment. The box she has guarded for years but rarely opened, because every time she touched it, the pain of losing her mother rushed back like a wound that never fully healed. The small box, its wood worn smooth with age, holds the entire life of Catherine Moore. Memories, confessions, secrets she never spoke aloud. Conrad sits beside Iris in the mansion's sitting room, late afternoon sunlight streaming through the windows and casting warm golden streaks across the carpet. Between them rests the wooden box, silent yet heavy with everything still unspoken. "I never finished reading my mother's diary," Iris says softly. "Every time I tried, I cried too hard to go on. But now I think it's time, and I want you to read it with me." Conrad nods without speaking, placing his hand over hers in quiet encouragement. Iris lifts the lid. Inside lie the relics Catherine preserved all her life. A brown leather diary, its corners frayed. Several photographs yellowed by time. An ivory envelope never opened. And a dried white chrysanthemum pressed flat between 2 sheets of paper like a sacred treasure. Iris picks up the diary and turns its pages with reverence, as if touching something holy. Her mother's handwriting appears, elegant and gentle, the blue ink faded, but still clear. She begins to read aloud, her voice trembling as Catherine's words fill the room. "Today Iris turned 10. I did something I promised myself I would never do. I went back there. I stood outside the gates of the Ashford estate for 2 hours, hiding behind a large tree, my heart pounding like a thief about to be caught. I didn't dare walk in. I didn't know what I would say if I saw him. But I did see him. Harrison. He was standing in the garden among the white chrysanthemums. The chrysanthemums I planted 10 years ago, when I was still the housekeeper here, when I still believed love could overcome anything. And what made me cry, my dear child, is that he still cared for them. After 10 years he still watered them, still trimmed the withered branches, still protected them from frost. He did not forget me. He simply did not have the courage to find me. And perhaps I did not have the courage either." Iris stops, tears sliding down her cheeks. Conrad sits in silence, his throat tight. "He didn't forget," he whispers. "He just didn't dare." Iris nods. "Neither did my mother," she says softly. "They loved each other, but both were too afraid to reach back. They wasted a lifetime on fear." She turns to the final pages of the diary, written only weeks before Catherine died. The handwriting is shakier, weaker, yet still filled with a mother's enduring love. "My beloved Iris, if you are reading this after I am gone, there is something I want you to know. True love is like a chrysanthemum. Simple, enduring, blooming where no one expects it. It doesn't need wealth or status to survive. Only a little light and the will to persevere. I hope one day you will find your true family. And when that day comes, remember what I taught you. Forgiveness is a gift you give yourself, not the one who hurt you. Don't let resentment imprison you the way it once imprisoned me. Live freely, my daughter. Love fully. And believe that even if I am no longer beside you, I am always watching over you from somewhere, forever loving you, Catherine." Iris weeps silently, her shoulders trembling with restrained sobs. Conrad rests a hand on her shoulder, saying nothing because no words could soothe the loss of a mother. They sit like that for a long while, silence filled with love and tears. At last, Iris wipes her eyes and reaches into the box for one of the old photographs. She studies it, then her eyes widen in astonishment. They knew each other, she whispers in confusion. Conrad leans closer and freezes. In the photograph, two women stand side by side in a garden of white chrysanthemums. One is Catherine, young and radiant. The other is Margaret, his mother, much younger than he remembers. They stand shoulder to shoulder like close friends, their smiles warm and genuine. "This is the estate garden," Conrad says in disbelief. "It must have been taken when your mother worked here." "That means my mother and yours knew each other." Iris turns the photograph over. On the back is a handwritten note, in black ink, Margaret's handwriting. "Catherine, the woman my husband truly loved. I am not jealous. I only wish he had been brave enough to love you openly." Conrad reads the line, his hand trembling. "Mother knew," he murmurs. "She knew long ago. Perhaps even before she found Iris. She knew about Catherine, knew his father loved her, and she was not jealous. She understood." Margaret had long understood that a heart can hold more than one love. She did not resent Catherine, did not hate the woman who claimed part of her husband's heart. She only mourned that Harrison lacked the courage to face his own love. And perhaps that is why, when she found Iris, she loved her like a daughter. She was doing what her husband had been too cowardly to do. That evening, Conrad brings the diary to Harrison's room. He says nothing, only sets it on the desk and leaves. Harrison reads alone through the night, page after page, witnessing Catherine's life through her own words. He reads of nights she wept, missing him, of days she worked herself to exhaustion to raise Iris, of the time she returned to the estate and watched him care for the chrysanthemums from afar. He reads of her love that never faded, of her forgiveness he never deserved. And he weeps, weeping as he has not wept in 30 years. The next morning, Harrison appears at breakfast, with eyes swollen and red. Yet something in his gaze has changed. The weight and guilt remain, but beside them is something new. Release. As if the diary has unlocked chains he bound around himself for decades. "I want Catherine to rest beside Margaret," he says, his voice low but firm. "They deserve to be together. Two women who loved me though I was unworthy. They should lie side by side in peace." Iris looks at him, and for the first time, she sees not the coward who abandoned her mother, but an old man trying to mend a lifetime of mistakes. "Mother would like that," she says gently. Harrison steps toward Iris and takes her hand. For the first time, the gesture of a father to a daughter. "I am sorry," he says, his voice trembling. "I know an apology is not enough. Nothing can repay the years you endured. But I will spend the rest of my life trying. I promise you, Iris, I will try to become the father you deserved." 1 week after the day, Harrison decides to lay Catherine to rest beside Margaret. The Ashford estate is swallowed by the stillness of night. The clock has just struck 2 in the morning when the alarm siren rips through the darkness, echoing through every corner of the mansion. Conrad is out of bed in an instant, the fighting instinct honed by years in the underworld snapping awake. He doesn't need to look at the security monitors to know what is happening. This is not the first time the estate has been attacked, but it is the first time since Iris and Noah have been here. His phone rings. Ghost is on the line, his voice tense but controlled. Gambini made his move. At least 10 men are surrounding the estate. They cut power to the east wing and they're trying to force their way in through the back. Conrad says nothing. He ends the call and runs out of the room. There is only one thought in his head. Iris, Noah. He races down the corridor, his shadow moving like a ghost through darkness lit only by red flashing emergency lights. Iris and Noah's room is at the end of the west wing, and when he pushes the door open, he finds her already awake, holding Noah tight in her arms. Her eyes are full of fear, but also full of resolve, the eyes of a mother willing to do anything to protect her child. "Come with me," Conrad says, his voice allowing no argument, no questions. Now, Iris doesn't ask. She lifts Noah, who is still half asleep, blinking in confusion, and they run after Conrad through the blackened corridors. Gunfire begins to crack in the distance, shouts and running footsteps echoing like a chaotic symphony of violence. Conrad leads them to a wall in the basement that looks ordinary, but when he presses a hidden brick, a section slides aside, revealing a steel-lined room with a door thick enough to withstand even a bomb. The safe room, Conrad says. Only family knows it's here. Stay inside. Don't open the door for anyone but me. If anything happens to me, Ghost will come and take you and Noah out through the escape tunnel behind the room. Iris steps in, but Noah is fully awake now and begins to cry. Uncle Conrad, where are you going? His voice shakes, tears spilling down his cheeks. Why are there explosions? I'm scared. Conrad crouches and looks straight into his nephew's eyes. In that moment, he isn't a cold mafia kingpin. He is only an uncle trying to calm a little boy. I'm going to protect our family, he says, gentle and steady. You stay here and protect your mom, okay? You're the man in this room. Can you do that? Noah wipes his tears, his small face trying to look brave. He nods and clings to his mother. I'll protect Mommy, I promise. Conrad smiles at him, then closes the heavy steel door. When it shuts, he is no longer the gentle uncle. He is Conrad Ashford, head of the Ashford Empire, and someone has dared to attack his family inside his own home. They will pay. The fight is fiercer than Conrad expects. Gambini has sent his best shooters, men trained and well-equipped, but they underestimated Ashford preparation. This mansion has been attacked before, and after each assault the defenses were upgraded. Conrad's guards push back wave after wave, gunfire flaring and then falling silent, dark shapes dropping without sound. Conrad stands at the command center, calm as he issues orders over the radio, his voice cold as if this were an ordinary business meeting. This is his world. This is the game he has known since he was a teenager, and he will not lose on his own ground. But Gambini has a backup plan. While the main attack rages at the front and rear of the estate, a smaller team slips in through a path no one expects. An old tunnel beneath the mansion, a route known only to people who once worked in the house, and Derek Vance, acting on maps provided by the Gambini family, who had studied the estate's blueprints for decades, is the one who leads them. 3 intruders move toward the basement, where the safe room shelters Iris and Noah. They advance silently, weapons ready, eyes sweeping every shadow as they hunt. Sterling doesn't know why he is here. After his confrontation with Conrad, and after the night he watched Harrison hold Noah in the chrysanthemum garden, he has not slept peacefully. Something has been gnawing at him, a sense of unease he cannot explain, and when the alarm sounds, he doesn't run to the command room as he should. He runs down to the basement. Instinct, an instinct he didn't know he possessed. As he nears the safe room, he sees them. 3 men in black, one of them working at the safe room door. Sterling doesn't think. He acts. The gun in his hand fires, the shot exploding through the tight basement space. 1 man drops, the other 2 whirl to face him. The gunfight is brief, but brutal. Sterling is not young anymore, but he grew up in this family, trained to fight since childhood. The remaining 2 fall, and Sterling stands there, breathing hard, his weapon still aimed at the bodies. No one touches an Ashford, he whispers, his voice shaking with adrenaline and something else he cannot name. Conrad arrives minutes later, and the sight stops him cold. Sterling, the uncle who fought so fiercely against Iris and Noah, stands before the safe room door like a gatekeeper, protecting the very people he once called imposters. The 2 men look at each other, and in their eyes every conflict and disagreement seems to dissolve. Sterling gives Conrad a single nod. They've been handled, he says. She and the boy are safe. Conrad steps closer and places a hand on his uncle's shoulder. Thank you. The attack ends as dawn begins to break. Gambini withdraws, leaving heavy losses behind. And among the captured is a face Conrad recognizes immediately. Derek Vance. He kneels on the floor, hands cuffed, his face drained of color with fear. Conrad stands over him, eyes like ice. You sold information about my sister to the enemy, he says, his voice without emotion. You led them here to hurt your son. Derek trembles. I had no choice, he stammers. I owed Gambini money. They said they would kill me if I didn't help. Everyone has a choice, Conrad replies. You chose to betray your son. Derek is taken away, and no one asks what becomes of him. In this world, some questions are better left unanswered. The Ashford family sits in the sitting room as the sun rises. They are shaking and exhausted, but alive. Harrison sits beside Iris, his hand gripping hers as if afraid she will vanish. I almost lost you again, he whispers. I cannot bear that. I cannot. Beatrice, the woman who once looked at Iris with contempt, comes and sits beside her now. Are you all right? She asks, her voice gentle in a way Iris has never heard. "Is the boy all right?" Iris stares at her in surprise. "We're fine," she answers. "Thank you." Sterling sits across the room, eyes fixed on Noah curled in his mother's lap, asleep again from sheer exhaustion. "I was wrong," he says heavily. "Tonight, when I saw them moving toward the boy's room, I didn't think. I only knew I had to protect my grandson. Because he is my own blood." He looks at Iris, regret filling his gaze. "And she is my niece." "I'm sorry." Conrad places a hand on his uncle's shoulder. "Tonight you proved it," he says. Noah stirs in his sleep, then slowly opens his eyes. He looks around and sees everyone sitting nearby. "Mommy, are the bad people gone?" he asks, his voice still thick with sleep. Iris kisses his forehead. "Yes, sweetheart. Our family is safe." Noah looks from one person to the next, from Harrison to Sterling, from Beatrice to Conrad. "Grandpa Harrison, Uncle Sterling, Aunt Beatrice, Uncle Conrad, are they all our family, Mommy?" Harrison bends down, his smile trembling but sincere. "Yes, my boy," he says. "All of them are your family. And for the first time in its history, the Ashford family has fought like a family and won like a family." 2 weeks after the attack, the Ashford estate no longer feels cold or heavy with tension as it once did. Something has shifted within these walls, as if the battle that night burned away old resentments and left something new rising from the ashes. Iris and Noah officially move into the mansion, no longer in secrecy or fear, and their presence begins to bring changes no one could have anticipated. The grand kitchen, once reserved for private chefs and rarely filled with laughter, now carries the warm scent of baked pastries and the sound of cheerful conversation. Beatrice stands at the counter, a white apron tied at her waist, guiding Noah's small hands as he stirs batter in a large bowl. "Aunt B, is this too much sugar?" Noah asks, wide eyes lifting toward the woman who only weeks ago looked at him with cool indifference. Beatrice smiles, a smile even Sterling has rarely seen on her lips. "Add a little more, sweetheart," she says gently. "Sweet cakes should be sweet, Aunt B." The simple name makes her turn her face away, hiding the tears threatening to spill. Not the distant Mrs. Ashford, not the sharp-tongued Beatrice, but Aunt B, spoken by a child without judgment. That afternoon, while Noah naps, Beatrice seeks Iris in the garden. They sit together on a stone bench among the white chrysanthemums, silence lingering before Beatrice speaks. "I owe you an explanation," she says quietly, "and an apology." Iris waits. "I never had children," Beatrice continues, her eyes drifting toward the flowers. "It is a sorrow I have carried for 15 years of marriage. Sterling and I tried everything, but fate refused us. I grew bitter, envious of anyone who had what I never could." She turns toward Iris. "When you arrived with Noah, I was jealous. I thought you came to take something from me, though I didn't know what that was. Perhaps Harrison's attention, perhaps family assets, or perhaps I simply couldn't bear to see someone else happy while I was in pain." She draws a long breath. "But now I understand. You didn't come to take. You brought something. You brought laughter into this house, something I longed for my entire life. You gave Harrison a chance to atone. You gave me the chance to be Aunt B." Iris takes her hand. "Noah needs many people to love him," she says softly. "He has no maternal grandparents, no father, but he can have Aunt B, if you want." Beatrice squeezes her hand, and for the first time the two women look at each other not as rivals, but as family. In the sitting room, another unexpected scene unfolds. Sterling sits across from Noah at a chessboard, his face serious as if conducting a high-level negotiation. Noah frowns at the board, trying to find his next move despite clearly losing. Sterling has checkmated him 3 times, yet Noah refuses to give up. "Uncle Sterling, I'm going to beat you one day," the boy declares with fierce determination. "Just wait." Sterling studies him, and a genuine smile rises to his lips, not the calculating grin he wears in business, but something warmer. "I believe you," he says. "You have a fighter's spirit." He resets the pieces. "This round I'll teach you defensive strategy." That evening, Sterling visits Conrad in the study. "The boy has spirit," he says, pride threading his voice in a way Conrad has never heard. "He lost 3 games and didn't cry. Didn't quit. He's Ashford through and through." Conrad smiles. "So you've changed your mind about him?" Sterling exhales slowly. "I was wrong about many things," he admits. But at least I'm not too old to learn. Harrison is changing as well. He begins spending time with Iris each day, not to speak but to listen. He listens as she tells him about Catherine, about hardship and a childhood marked by sacrifice, yet filled with love. Mother worked 3 jobs to raise me, Iris says calmly, as though telling someone else's story. Early mornings she cleaned offices. By day she waited tables. At night she sewed garments at home. She never complained. She only said life was a test, and we must pass it with love. Harrison sits in silence, tears streaming down his face unchecked. If I had not been a coward, he whispers, your lives would have been different. You would not have suffered so. Iris looks at him and sees not the man who abandoned her, but an aging soul drowning in regret. We cannot change the past, she says gently, but we have the present. And that is what matters. The first true family dinner takes place on a Saturday evening in the grand dining room, once rarely filled. Harrison sits at the head of the table, Iris and Noah beside him. Conrad sits opposite, Sterling and Beatrice nearby. There are no hostile glances, no cutting remarks. Only the soft clink of silverware and quiet conversation about the day. Grandpa Harrison. Noah pipes up, his voice clear. I pray every night for Grandma Margaret and Grandma Catherine to watch over our family. Do you think they hear me? The table falls silent. Harrison looks at his grandson, eyes red yet smiling warmly. I believe they are watching, he says softly, and I believe they are very happy. After dinner, Harrison rises, his expression solemn. I have an announcement, he says. I will hold a formal ceremony acknowledging Iris as my daughter. Before everyone, before our associates, before anyone who needs to know. Iris Holloway is the daughter of Harrison Ashford, and that will be recognized properly. Sterling nods. I support it. Beatrice adds, I will help arrange it. Iris is so moved, she can hardly speak. I don't need a ceremony, she finally says. I only need a family. Harrison takes her hand. That is exactly why you deserve one, he replies. Margaret would have wanted it. She wanted you acknowledged, respected, loved, and I will do that for her, for Catherine, and for you. Later that night, Conrad stands by the study window, looking out at the white chrysanthemums glowing beneath the moonlight. Ghost joins him and cannot resist observing. Boss, I've never seen you smile this much. Conrad doesn't turn, but he smiles into the darkness. I've never had this much to smile about. 3 months after Harrison's decision, every detail has been carefully prepared for the most important day in the history of the Ashford family. That morning the sky is clear without a single cloud, as if nature itself wishes to witness what is about to unfold. The private Ashford cemetery rests on a small hill behind the estate, where generations of Ashfords have been laid to rest for more than 100 years. And today, Catherine Moore is finally brought home to where she has always belonged, beside Margaret, 2 women who loved the same man in different ways yet with equal devotion. Only close family attend the reinterment ceremony. Conrad stands in silence, his hand clasped tightly around Iris's. Noah stands between his mother and his grandfather Harrison, wide eyes fixed on the new casket being lowered into the grave beside Margaret's. Sterling and Beatrice stand behind them, and for the first time Beatrice doesn't attempt to appear distant. Her eyes are wet, her hand firmly holding her husband's. When the casket is lowered and the first shovels of earth fall, Harrison steps forward and stands between the 2 graves. On his left lies Margaret Ashford, the wife who stood beside him for 40 years. On his right rests Catherine Moore, the woman he loved but lacked the courage to keep. 2 women who shaped his life in ways he never dared admit. Catherine, Harrison begins, his voice trembling in the quiet morning air. I am sorry I am 30 years late. I am sorry I let you walk away when you needed me most. I am sorry for every hardship you endured alone. But I promise you this. From this day forward, our daughter will be loved as you should have been loved. He turns toward the grave on his left. Margaret, thank you for doing what I was too afraid to do. You loved my daughter when I was too cowardly to acknowledge her. You found her, cared for her, loved her as your own. You were a better woman than I ever deserved. I hope you and Catherine can forgive me, though I know I am unworthy. Iris steps forward holding 2 bouquets of white chrysanthemums. She lays one on Catherine's grave and one on Margaret's, then kneels between them. Mother, Grandma Margaret, you both brought me here, she says, her voice thick with emotion. Through my mother's love and Grandma Margaret's courage, I found my family. I will not fail the love you gave me. I promise. Noah lets go of his mother's hand and moves beside her. He carries 2 small chrysanthemums he picked from the garden at dawn, carefully placing one on each grave. Grandma Catherine, Grandma Margaret, he says, his clear voice ringing in the stillness. I will be good. I will study hard. I will protect Mommy like Uncle Conrad protects our family. I love you both very much, even though I never got to meet you. Harrison looks at his grandson and doesn't attempt to stop his tears. This child, born of denied love, raised in hardship and fear, possesses a heart so pure. If there were ever proof that Harrison doesn't deserve forgiveness, Noah's very existence is proof to the contrary. This boy is the most beautiful thing born from his greatest mistake. That afternoon, the Ashford garden is transformed into something entirely new. 6 months of devoted care have turned Margaret's white chrysanthemum garden into a breathtaking landscape. Thousands of blossoms bloom beneath the autumn sun, their gentle fragrance drifting through the air. White chairs are arranged in careful rows, silk ribbons fluttering softly in the breeze. Guests begin to arrive, powerful figures from Chicago's business world and underworld alike, longtime Ashford associates, and even those who once questioned Iris's existence. They come not only out of curiosity, but because when Harrison Ashford extends an invitation, no one dares refuse. Iris stands before the mirror in her room. She wears a pale blue dress, the color her mother loved, the color of hope and life. Her hair is swept up neatly, a single white chrysanthemum tucked beside her ear. Noah stands beside her in a crisp white shirt, with a matching bloom pinned over his heart. Mommy, do we look nice? He asks, looking up at her. Iris bends to kiss his forehead, the nicest in the world. Conrad appears at the doorway. It is time, he says. Together they step into the garden where hundreds of eyes are waiting. Harrison stands at the center before a small platform adorned with white chrysanthemums. He wears a black suit, formal yet no longer severe. When he sees Iris and Noah approach, he extends his hand. Iris takes it and stands beside him. The guests fall silent. 30 years ago, in this very garden, I loved an extraordinary woman named Catherine Moore, Harrison begins, his voice carrying across the flowers. She was light in my darkest days, joy in my deepest despair, and in this garden, out of cowardice and fear, I sent her away when she needed me most. He pauses, drawing a steady breath. Today, 30 years later, I stand here to correct that mistake, not because I can change the past, but because I can change the future. He turns to Iris, his eyes filled with love long restrained. This is my daughter, Iris Holloway Ashford, he says with pride and certainty. And this is my grandson, Noah. They are my blood, my family, the future of Ashford. I don't deserve forgiveness for what I have done, but my daughter Iris is strong enough to forgive. Through her I have experienced the unconditional love Catherine carried, the wisdom Margaret possessed, and the resilient strength Iris has always held. He faces the crowd, his gaze sharp as steel. From this day forward, Iris is Ashford. Noah is Ashford. And anyone who has a problem with that may speak to me directly. Silence blankets the garden. Then something unexpected happens. Noah releases his mother's hand and runs forward, wrapping his arms tightly around his grandfather. He says nothing. He simply holds on, his small body pressed against the old man. Harrison freezes for a moment, then bends down and embraces his grandson, tears streaming down his face before hundreds of witnesses. He doesn't hide them. He doesn't feel shame. He holds the boy and weeps for 30 lost years, for all he nearly lost forever. Sterling rises first and begins to clap. Then Beatrice. Then Conrad. One by one the guests stand, applause echoing across the garden. No more doubts, no more whispers, only acknowledgement, respect, and perhaps a measure of admiration for a man who dared to confess his wrongs before the world. After the ceremony, when the guests have departed and the garden grows quiet again, Conrad stands beside Iris as they watch the sun dip toward the horizon. Mother would be proud of you, he says. Iris turns to him. She would be proud of you, she replies. You were the one who found me. You were the one who never gave up. Conrad shakes his head, a faint smile touching his lips. No, Mother found you. I only followed her instructions. White chrysanthemums, remember. She knew I would understand. She knew I would find you. She planned everything. Above them, a white cloud drifts slowly across the sky, and golden sunlight pours down over the sea of white blossoms. The flowers seem to glow, bathed in a gentle, tender light. Iris lifts her eyes to the sky and smiles, as though Margaret is somewhere above, looking down in quiet satisfaction. Her final wish fulfilled. 1 year has passed since the day of recognition, and autumn has returned to Chicago. Golden leaves drift gently along the path leading to the Ashford Cemetery, where 2 graves lie side by side, waiting for the footsteps of those who love them. The Ashford family walks that familiar road no longer as separate individuals burdened by resentment and secrets, but as a true family, united and bound by love. Conrad walks in front. Iris follows, holding Noah's hand. Harrison moves more slowly behind them, and Sterling and Beatrice walk together, hand in hand. The 2 graves rest beneath the broad canopy of a maple tree, the engraved names Margaret Ashford and Catherine Moore Ashford glowing softly in the autumn light. Around them, white chrysanthemums bloom in abundance, flowers Noah planted himself over the past year with his grandfather's help. He is 6 now, taller and more confident, his bright eyes reflecting the assurance of a child fully loved. Noah steps forward, holding 2 small bouquets of white chrysanthemums he picked from the garden that morning. He places one upon Margaret's grave, then carefully sets the other upon Catherine's, his movements solemn and deliberate, like a grown man. "Grandma Margaret, thank you for loving my mommy when Grandpa wasn't brave enough to," he says, his voice clear and earnest. "Thank you for sending me to your funeral so Uncle Conrad could find us. Without you, I wouldn't have Grandpa, or Uncle Conrad, or Aunt Bee, or this big family. I love you very much." He turns to the neighboring stone. "Grandma Catherine, thank you for teaching Mommy about forgiveness. Mommy says you never held grudges. Never let anger make your heart heavy. I promise I'll forgive people who hurt me, just like Mommy forgave Grandpa. I'll live well, so you can both be proud." Harrison steps between the 2 graves, his gaze moving from one name to the other in quiet reflection. "The 2 most extraordinary women of my life," he says, his voice low but steady now. "Margaret taught me courage. She dared to love the child I abandoned, dared to do what I was too cowardly to do. Catherine taught me forgiveness. She forgave me, though I didn't deserve it. Loved our daughter while carrying every burden alone. I lived 30 years in fear, hiding from my mistakes. But this past year, with Iris and Noah beside me, is the first year I have truly lived. For the first time I understand what family means. For the first time I am no longer alone." Sterling steps forward and lays a white chrysanthemum upon Catherine's grave. "I didn't know you when you were alive," he says with a sincerity rarely heard in his voice. "But I know your daughter, and I can say she is the most worthy Ashford I have ever met. She is strong, resilient, and more generous of heart than anyone I know. You raised her alone, and you did it better than anyone could have." Beatrice stands beside Noah, her hand clasped tightly around his. "Thank you for bringing this boy into our lives," she says softly, emotion thick in her voice. "Noah is the greatest gift I've ever received. He taught me how to love, how to open my heart, how to become a better person. I never had children, but now I have a grandson, and that is because of you both." Iris kneels between the 2 graves, one hand resting upon her mother's stone, the other upon Margaret's. "Mother, Grandma Margaret, I have found home," she says, her voice gentle as the autumn wind. "I am no longer alone. Noah has a grandfather who loves him, an Uncle Conrad who protects him, an Aunt Bee who spoils him, an Uncle Sterling who teaches him chess. And I have a brother, a father, a family larger than I ever dared to dream of. You gave me the greatest gift of all. You gave me family. I love you. Always." Conrad stands a little apart, watching his family gathered around the 2 graves. 1 year ago, he was the loneliest mafia boss in Chicago. His mother had just died. His father was distant. His uncle and aunt cared only for money and power. He possessed an empire, yet had no one to share it with, no one to love. He thought that was how he would live until the end. Then a little boy in a blue shirt appeared at a funeral and placed a white chrysanthemum in his mother's hand. And everything changed. Now he has a sister, a nephew, a father who has changed, an uncle and aunt who have opened their hearts. His empire remains strong. His power has not diminished. But he has something far greater. He has family. The Ashford family leaves the cemetery as the sun begins to set, painting the sky in brilliant shades of pink and gold, colors Catherine once loved. Noah runs ahead, his left hand holding Harrison's, his right gripping Conrad's, pulling the two men forward with laughter ringing bright and alive. Iris walks beside Beatrice, the two women discussing a new pastry recipe they plan to try over the weekend. Sterling follows behind, and for the first time in his life he looks like a true uncle, not a cold businessman or a feared member of a mafia dynasty. At the cemetery gate, Conrad pauses and looks back one last time. In the distance, the two graves rest side by side beneath the maple tree, surrounded by blooming white chrysanthemums. On Margaret's grave, a single flower sways gently in the evening breeze, as if his mother is sending a quiet greeting, smiling in satisfaction that her final wish has come true. Conrad smiles, then turns to follow his family home. The Ashford name is no longer merely a cold title whispered in powerful circles, no longer just an empire or a fearsome legacy. It stands as living proof of the strength of love and forgiveness, proof that it is never too late to correct a mistake, never too late to begin again. Like the white chrysanthemums in the garden, simple and enduring, blooming where no one expects. Love needs no luxury or perfect circumstances to survive. It needs only a little light and the determination to endure. And among those blossoms, among cherished memories, the Ashford family begins its new chapter, finally whole, finally at peace. This story leaves us with many precious lessons about life. The first is forgiveness. Forgiveness is not a gift we give to those who hurt us, but a gift we give ourselves so that we may be free from resentment. The second is courage. Sometimes admitting a mistake and facing the past requires more bravery than any battle. The third is the meaning of family. Family is not only those who share our blood, but those who choose to love and protect one another. And finally, there is hope. It is never too late to change, to heal, to begin again. If this story has touched your heart, please take a moment to press the like button and share this video with those you love. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications so you won't miss the moving stories we share each day. We would truly love to know how you feel about this story. Have you ever had to forgive someone? Do you believe in second chances? Please share your thoughts in the comments below. We read every message that comes from your heart. Thank you for spending your time with us today. We wish you good health, a joyful life, peace, and happiness each day. Remember that no matter how difficult life may become, love and forgiveness will always be the light that guides you. Goodbye, and we will see you in the next video.